So, you want to make a fighting game, but where do you start? I'm not gonna lie, making a fighting game was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Nothing could really prepare me for the amount of workload that was about to go into this particular project. But I'm gonna make sure you don't have to go through most of that. Here's 4 things to do before making a fighting game in Dreams. So the first and most important thing that you're gonna want to do when you're creating your fighting game here in Dreams is you're going to want to plan exactly how many characters you're going to have in your roster. We're going to slowly break down why this is very important in the next step, which is gameplay thermo. These 2 steps complement each other. Gameplay thermo is basically the amount of things that you can fit within a dream or a scene. If you have too many things, the gameplay thermo could reach over 100% and you won't be able to save your dream or your progress. This is why it's important to plan how many characters you're going to have in your game, because depending on how many characters you have, it's going to increase the gameplay thermo dramatically. If you have 8 characters in your roster, this means you're going to have 8 characters with the ability to block, dodge, attack, or any other special moves that you have implemented in your game. All of these different animations are going to contribute to the gameplay thermo. If your fighting game has a 2-player function, which most fighting games have, then the roster size is definitely going to contribute even more to the gameplay thermo. Again, let's say I have 8 characters in a fighting game roster. If I have another player pick the same character as me, that means I'm going to have a copy of that same character that was both chosen by both players. That means in one scene, I'm not going to just be having 8 playable characters, I'm going to be having 16 in total. Depending on the actions you're going to be having each one of your characters do in this fighting game, it's going to be split and copied between every single character within your roster. So to make a long story short, you want to plan out your roster size before you start your game. I recommend going with 4 playable characters. Now that we've gone through the 2 most important steps, it's time to talk about the backgrounds. Every fighting game needs a place for you to fight in. They can make your games feel very interesting and immersive. The Dreamiverse allows you to stamp in multiple different assets for your game that most creators have already made available for you to use. So if there's a unique fighting setting that you have set in mind, like a gritty dark alley or a UFC style boxing ring, 9 times out of 10 the assets already exist out there for you to use. But what happens if there's an asset that you have in mind that isn't out there? You're just going to have to use your own imagination and sculpt it yourself. But I'll get into that later in another tutorial. But I cannot stress enough how important it is to first figure out how step 1 and step 2 are going to go in your fighting game. The backgrounds really don't matter in the beginning stages of your game. This is all purely aesthetic based and really exists just to make the game look pretty. We just want to get the gameplay elements right before we start making any big changes. Now it's time that we get into our final step. You want to test play every aspect of your game. And you don't want to test play just at the very end. You want to test play throughout the entire development cycle. This is just to prevent any bugs or any other issues that you may have missed during your development, and you may just miss a few even after you release your game. If you have a 2-player mode within your game but you don't have somebody to test play it locally with you, you can always share play the game and test play it like that. Just make sure that you have play with visitor enabled when you have share play on. I wish there was a lot more to say about this step, but really that's all there is to it. Just don't feel bad after releasing your game it has a ton of bugs in it, because even the biggest game developers in the world still run into these issues. But the faster you can find these bugs, the better. That's why test playing your game is so important. And those are 4 tips on how to make a fighting game here in Dreams. If you like what you've seen here, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And remember to turn on notifications and hit the little bell so you're always notified when I upload. With that being said, I'll see you next time. Peace.